This recording will review Chapter 9, Management Principles. Management functions are a critical element to help transform inputs of food service into outputs. It's a process of integrating resources for accomplishment of objectives. And in food service, that objective would be to provide meals to a customer or provide customer satisfaction. It involves basic functions of planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, and coordinating different resources. You can probably think of examples of when you've had a great or a good manager versus times where you've had a poor or not so great manager. Examples of poor or good management are managers who communicate well. Maybe they're a working manager, so they actually work right along with their staff. They listen to their staff and they train staff on procedures and how to do things correctly. And in poor management, you can think of potentially or possibly the complete opposite, where maybe they micromanage, there's a lack of communication, and poor training or no training is provided. Management requires coordination of human and material resources while maintaining concern for morale, ethics, and ideals. A manager's job is unpredictable and can be full of challenges, but it is also filled with opportunities to make a difference. Authority, responsibility, and accountability are concepts important to the process of management. Authority is delegated from top levels to lower levels of management, and is the right of a manager to direct others and take actions because of his or her position in the organization. Responsibility is the obligation to perform an assigned activity or see that someone else performs it. Because responsibility is an obligation a person accepts, it cannot be delegated or passed to another. Essentially, the obligation remains with the person who accepted the responsibility. Accountability is the state of being responsible to oneself, to an organization, or to even the public. In the systems context, management was described as a process for accomplishing an objective, implying, therefore, that accountability is an integral aspect of the managerial role. Managers must show results in an era when scarce resources are an increasing concern. Efficient and effective use of these resources to produce desired results is important for and viable for any organization's success. Efficiency is doing things right, where effectiveness is doing the right things. There are many different roles of managers that we'll review. The formal authority of managers gives rise to interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles. We'll start with interpersonal. These are the roles of figurehead, leader, and liaison. The figurehead role has been described by some management experts as the representational responsibility of management. By virtue of the manager's role as a head of the organization or unit, ceremonial duties must be performed and may involve a written proclamation or an appearance at an important function. The manager in charge of an organization or unit is also responsible for work of the staff. This constitutes the leader role. Functions of this role range from hiring and training employees to creating an environment that will motivate the staff. The managers also must assume the interpersonal role of liaison by dealing with people both inside and outside of the organization. Managers must relate effectively to peers and other departments of the organization and to people like suppliers and clients. Now let's move on to informational roles. These are roles of the manager who include monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. So as the monitor, the manager constantly searches for information to use to become more effective. They may query liaison contacts and subordinates and must be alert to unsolicited information that may result from the network of contacts previously developed. In the disseminator role, the manager transmits information to subordinates who otherwise would probably have no access to this information. This is an important aspect of the role, and it's an important aspect of this role is to make decisions concerning the information needs of staff members. The spokesperson role of the manager is closely akin to the figurehead role. The manager transmits information to people inside and outside the organizational unit. And last is decisional roles. So there are 3 here, including entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator. Well, really 4, not quite 3. Let's start with entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, the manager is an involuntary initiator of change. The entrepreneur role may involve, for example, a decision to change the menu after networking with different restaurants or customers. In the role of disturbance handler, the manager responds to situations that are beyond his or her control. In this role, the manager must act because the pressures of situations are too severe to be ignored. For example, if you have a strike or if a supplier fails to provide goods or services. A resource allocator, the manager decides how and to whom the resources of an organization will be distributed. In authorizing important decisions, the manager must be mindful of the needs of the unit while considering priorities of the overall operation. In the negotiator role, manager participates in a process of give and take until a satisfactory compromise is reached. Managers have this responsibility because they have the requisite information and authority to develop complex contracts with suppliers or less formal negotiations within the organization. Management does require a number of skills, and we're going to review 3 in this slide. First is technical skill. A technical skill involves an understanding of or a proficiency in a specific type of activity, particularly one involving methods or techniques. Such skills require specialized knowledge, analytical ability, and expertise in the tools and/or procedures. Human skill. So this is human or interpersonal skills, and this is, working well with people and understanding their behavior. This requires effective communication, and it's vital to all managers' activities and must be consistently demonstrated in action. And then conceptual skills. This is the ability to view the organization as a whole and recognize how various parts depend on one another and how changes in one part can affect another. Conceptual skills also involve the ability to understand the organization within the environment. A good example is the relationship of the organization with other similar organizations and to suppliers within the community. So we're going to talk about a couple different management functions. So they include planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. So planning. Plans establish organization objectives and set up procedures for reaching them. We have additional information on subsequent slides on this area. Next is organizing. Organizing is the process of grouping activities, delegating authority to accomplish activities, providing for coordination of relationships, and facilitating decision-making. Next is staffing. Among the most critical tasks of managers is considered staffing. The recruitment, selection, training, and development of people who will be most effective in helping the organization meet its goals. Next is directing. Directing is the human resource function particularly concerned with individual and group behavior. All managing involves interaction with people and thus demands an understanding how we affect and are affected by others. When managers direct others, they use that understanding to accomplish tasks through the work of other members of the organization. And then controlling. Controlling is the process of ensuring that plans are being followed. It involves comparing what should be done with what was done and then taking corrective action if necessary. Controlling must be a continuous process that affects and is affected by each of the other managerial functions. So let's expand more on planning. There are different dimensions of planning. And there are 4 that we'll review here: repetitiveness, time span, level of management, and flexibility. So repetitiveness, standing plans are plans for repetitive action. If they're used over and over and over again, Single-use plans, also called a single purpose. They're not repeated but remain as part of the historical records of the organization. So you need to think about your repetitiveness when making the plans. Will this be something you do once, or will this be something you do over and over again? They also need to consider the time span for planning, and this refers to whether or not this plan will be short range versus long range. So do you have a lot of time, or do you have a little bit of time? Short range planning typically covers a period of 1 year or less. For example, the operating budget for a year. Long-range plans for most organizations encompass a 5-year cycle. However, it could be longer depending on what it is you're planning, such as a major building program or creating a whole new building. That could take much longer than a year or 5 years. And then level of management. A relationship exists between the hierarchy of plans and the level of management involved in the planning effort. Generally, top managers who function at the policy-making level of the organization are responsible for broad, comprehensive planning involving goals and objectives. Middle managers at the organizational and coordination level are responsible for developing the policies. And then the first line, which would be your frontline managers, are the technical or operational level, are responsible for developing the policies and procedures and methods. Flexibility in planning is one of the major considerations in planning. It is the permissible degree of flexibility. Long-range planning involves decision-making that commits resources over an extended period of time. And rapidly changing technology, competitive and market situations, and political pressure can make forecasting extremely difficult. Thus, it's helpful to be flexible. If you're rigid in your early stages, this could be potentially difficult to have flexibility and make changes to plans as necessary. All right, let's talk a little bit about different organizational structures. There are two that we'll review: traditional and innovative. Let's start with traditional. So, traditional organizations, one of the primary reasons for organizing is to establish lines of authority which create order. The traditional organization frequently is defined in terms of the following. So they usually have an organization chart and job descriptions or position guides. This is a pattern of formal relationships and duties. There's differentiation or departmentalization. This is an assignment of various activities or tasks to different units or people within the organization. Then there's integration. This is a coordination of separate activities or tasks within the different departments. There's often a delegation of authority, which includes power, status, and hierarchical relationships within the organization. And it also has administrative systems known as P&P, or policies and procedures. This is a guidance of activities and relationships of people in the organization through planned and formalized policies and procedures and controls. So this is an example of an organizational chart. This is figure 916 in your text for a department of a food service operation at a large academic medical center, and it illustrates the vertical division of labor. This graphically portrays the organizational structure, and it depicts the basic relationships of positions and functions while specifying the formal authority and communication network of the organization. The title of a position on the chart broadly identifies its activity. Distance from the top indicates the person's relative status, and lines between the positions are used to indicate the prescribed formal interaction. All right, let's talk about an innovative organization. In innovative organization, employers are challenged to improve the quality of work, life balance, and to develop corporate and organizational culture. Innovative organizations are characterized by several general precepts. They have empowered decision-making, so employees, not just managers, are involved in decision-making. Sociability. They have a sense of belonging to the organization, and it's created for all members within the organization. There's a new base of management power. So a shift has occurred from use of only downward authority to inclusion of upward and lateral lines of authority and input. Personal considerations made, so greater recognition is given to the importance of individual employees, not just the job that they perform. They are team-based and typically with group recognition. So formation of teams of employees and/or managers work together to accomplish goals with more emphasis on team rather than individual recognition. There's self-fulfillment, so employees' job satisfaction and sense of accomplishment is more valued. There's more of a flat hierarchy here, so the number of managerial levels has been reduced in compared to traditional organizations. There's an emphasis on vision and values. Companies are finding it more important to formulate clear visions and values to which employees can commit themselves to. Managers as change agents. So change is viewed as a critical component in the organization's success, and managers are expected to stimulate and facilitate this change. And they're technologically savvy. So there's effective use of all different forms of technology, and a presence on the internet are necessary components of the organization. Both of these types of organizations can institute what we call positive corporate culture. So corporate culture or organizational culture is defined as shared philosophies, values, assumptions, beliefs, expectations, attitudes, and norms that knit an organization together. So positive cultures have the following qualities in common. They have integrity, where they build trust between people in the organization. They have a bottom-up style of management involving employees as part of the team. They find ways of having fun both at work and outside of work. There's some community involvement where they participate in different community service activities or programs. And there's an emphasis on physical health and fitness. So this is practicing a belief that a sound mind goes along with a sound body. There are a few underlying concepts of an organization. So because managers cannot supervise an unlimited amount of subordinates, there are different areas of organizational activities that must be defined, with someone placed in charge in each area. So we have authority, responsibility, and delegation. Authority is defined as the right of a manager to direct others and to take action because of position held within the organization. Authority is delegated down the hierarchy of an organization as designated by upper management. Responsibility is a concept closely related to authority and refers to the obligation for performing an assigned activity. Span of management, which we have in a subsequent slide on, is often referred to as the span of control, and it's concerned with the number of people any one person can supervise effectively. And we'll get into more details soon. And last, there's formal versus accepted authority. Formal authority is considered top-down theory because it traces the flow of authority from the top to the bottom of the organization. Formal authority is also referred to as positional authority, meaning the authority is derived from the position or the office. Acceptance authority is based on the concept that managers have no effective authority unless and until subordinates are accepting of that authority. Although they may have formal authority, this authority is effective only if a subordinate accepts it. And then last is authority of competence or expertise, and this is based on technical knowledge and experience. A command may be accepted not because of an organizational title, but because the employee believes the person giving the command or knowledge understands and is knowledgeable of the area that they are providing expertise in. So here's more about span of management. It's also often referred to as span of control, and it's concerned with the number of people any one person can supervise effectively. There are several factors involved in determining the proper number you can effectively manage. First is organizational policies. So there should be clearly defined policies which can reduce the time managers spend making decisions. The more comprehensive the policies, the greater span of management. And also the availability of staff experts. Managers can have increased span if staff experts are available to provide advice and services to others. If the staff is competent, well-trained workers can perform their jobs without close supervision, thus freeing competent managers to expand their span of management. Objective standards in place. So if an organization with objective standards and standardized procedures, workers have a basis by which they can gauge their own progress, thus allowing managers to concentrate on the exceptions. As a result, larger spans are possible if objective standards are in place. Less complicated work tends to require less supervision than more complicated work. And generally, the simpler and more uniform the work, the greater the possible span of management. And last, distribution of the workforce. The number of areas where supervised workers are on duty may inhibit severely a manager's ability to visit all different work sites. So the greater the dispersion of workers, the shorter the span may be in place. Let's talk about departmentalization. So this is a process of grouping jobs according to some kind of logical arrangement, and it is the most frequently used method for implementing division of labor. Departments are commonly organized by function, product, geography, customer and process, equipment, or time. The type and size of organization are key factors influencing the form of an organization structure will take. So let's start with function. Functional departmentalization occurs when an organization units are defined by the nature of the work. Most organizations have three basic functions: production, sales, and finance. The primary advantage of such departmentalization is that it allows specialization within function and provides for efficient use of equipment and other resources. Product and service. Under this kind of departmentalization, all activities required in producing and marketing them are usually under the direction of a single manager. Product departmentalization allows workers to identify with a particular product and encourages expansion, improvement, and diversification, although duplication of function may be a problem here. In geography, departmentalization by territory is most likely to occur in organizations that maintain physically dispersed and autonomous operations or offices. Geographic departmentalization permits the use of local personnel and may help create customer goodwill and responsiveness to local customs. Customer is another type of departmentalization, and it's based on division of a customer served. This approach of departmentalization permits the wholesaler to serve the specialized needs of both the grocer and the food service operator. Process, time, and equipment. Process, equipment, and time are other bases for departmentalization, and they're closely related to functional departmentalization. In large food service operations, for instance, a deep fat frying section with a production unit would be an example of process equipment departmentalization. Time or shift is another common way of departmentalizing in some organizations. Organizations such as hospitals that function around the clock often organize themselves on this basis.